Hello everyone, this is the great Lord and Master Osiron, the Eternal, for what's going to be a continuation of the universal tree of divine perfection. But I'm going to break away from the true tree of life and jewel this time and get into a much greater expression of the single digit code that transcends even the true tree and the jewel, because the true tree of life and the jewel do amazing things with the numbers, and they are congruent perfectly with the single digit code as I've shown. But the flaw with them is that they are isolated constructs, because what they did with the numbers, how they, when they left out Da'ath, and this is going to the Kabbalistic tree, because the true tree of life I don't think is known by anyone, or if it is, they're not telling you. But because I think the true tree of life, the reason the true tree of life is so perfect is because it's a perfect counterbalance to the mistake that was created with the Kabbalistic tree. And I think the perfect counterbalance is the true tree of life, and that's why it shows up so perfectly, because the true tree of life is just amazing and divine, and how it works with the jewel of creation, which is a Kabbalistic tree, is perfect. But this transcends that, and I want to show you something. Alright, we're back here. I left this construct here. This is the universal, or what I'm calling, the universal tree of divine perfection. Okay, there's just a couple points I just want to clarify on this that I sort of forgot to mention on the other one. There's only a couple. I said how when you add the middle pillar in its unreduced form, it becomes 63. Well, that's true, it does. But it also, if you add the numbers in their reduced forms, it becomes 36, just like the center ring does. So when you add up the center ring in its unreduced forms, it becomes 63. When you add it up and it's reduced, it becomes 36. The middle pillar does the same exact thing. And one other thing too, up here the counterbalances all reduced to 3, and in the other video for this I said it was like 21, 21, 30. Well, that was a mistake. But what it does though is each cross opposition in its unreduced form adds to 30. So we got 30, 30, and 30, and when you add 30, 30, and 30, that becomes 90. So this upper expression, which is just the material world, ends up producing numbers of just 9 and 0. So it's, again, the fractality. Well, this isn't the true tree, but the true tree begins with 0 and ends with 9. So we're seeing that in the manifestation of the world too. Okay, now what all this is over here is just an extension of this, because one of the things about the this construct, this universal tree of divine perfection, is that it's infinite. Okay, one of the things, and this is where it transcends the true tree and jewel, because this construct is infinite. It goes infinitely up and down, and it also goes infinitely left to right, and it also goes infinitely at its angle, at its angles too, which I'll get into. But what all this over here is just an extension of this going in its infinite form this way. And this could very well be the solution to the Vortex Math grid, because I myself have never been happy with the Vortex Math grid that was presented by those guys. And that's advanced Vortex Math, but I never liked that, and I think this may be the solution to that, because this produces a grid that's infinite, and you're going to see the amazement of it, but it's infinite in every direction, and it's that. So what this does is this extends off of this structure. I left this structure as it was presented before, so you can see what I'm talking about and how this goes out. So all this does is, do you see how this is laid out? You got 1, 2, and then when it goes up, it goes 3, 4, 5, 6 all the way up. But when it goes this way, it goes 1, 2, and you'll notice how the spheres are on offset planes. Okay, so if you build it 1, 2, and you stay on this same plane, the next number is of course 3, then 4, 5, 6, 7, and so on. And the same thing with the 3. If you stay on this plane and you count over, you go 3, 4, 5, then 6. Same here, 4, 5, 6, 7, on and on, 6, 7, 8. It just continues to infinity. And this forms a universal grid or a web matrix that is infinite. It never has to end. This thing can go for infinity and never end. But it's also doing some amazing things. See, this is comprised, this structure here is using the Vortex Math number groups. Okay, and we see them circled here. The first one is 147, the middle is 369, and the other one is 258. And we're seeing that here. We got 147, and then it just repeats to infinity. The 147 just repeats to infinity. You got 147, then 10, 13, 16, which reduces to 147, and this goes to infinity. The 258 is the same thing. 258, and then 11, 14, and 17, which is just 258, and that repeats to infinity. In the middle is the 369, and then 12, 15, 18, of course, reduces to 369, and that also repeats to infinity up and down, maintaining these number groups. These never deviate. And what you see, this is doing some amazing things too. What you see up top here is you see these two arrows on this middle pillar, 6 and a 3 with two arrows, and then over here you got 9, 6 and 9, 3. Well, what happens on this middle pillar, okay, is if you break this up into triangular arrows, like in this example being, you got 7, 8, and 9 is an upward facing arrow, and then 4, 6, 5, and 1, 3, 2 are all upward facing arrows. All of those arrows reduce to 6 going in the upward direction. And conversely, going downward, you see the 7, 6, 8, 4, 3, 5, and 1, 9, 2. Those arrows going down all reduce to a 3. So you got upward motion on the 369 pillar of 6, and the lower one is going down 3. But now, what happens with the what I call the terrestrial numbers, which is everything that's not a 3, 6, or a 9, if you use that same logic, I call this the zipper here. I left this unconnected intentionally, and you're going to see why. If you use that same logic with the terrestrial numbers, on this pillar here, you got 8 as the top of the arrow, and you got like 9, 8, 1, 6, 5, 7, 3, 2, 4, and going downward. All those reduce to 9 going downward. But if you go upward doing the same thing, 3, 5, 4, 6, 8, 7, and so on, they all reduce to 3 going upward. It's the exact opposite for the other pillar. The upward motion using, I have to use this here so you can see, but going upward, you got 8, 1, 9, 5, 7, 6, and 2, 4, 3 going upward. That reduces to 9. In the downward direction is 8, 7, 9, 5, 4, 6, 2, 1, 3. Going downward, all reduced to 6. So what that implies is that there's a one-way motion. That these two end pillars are one-way motions. The upward motion is 3, and by having it 9 the other way, it's suggesting that you don't go that way. That's a 0. The 9 is equivalent to a 0, and you don't go that way. So we got motion going upward here. We got motion going downward here, and the middle pillar is a dual motion. Okay, and this is, and of course, extends to infinity. Now I call this the zipper. Oh, there's also one more point I want to get to that's very important in this. See, the 3, 6, 9 pillars, as I explained on this, it actually gets more than that though. Every 6, every 3, 6, and 9, every conjoining sephira, which is 4, these lines all connect to a sphere that connects to a terrestrial number. Every single one of those numbers reduced to 6. So in this case, you see a 6, and we've got 4, 5, 7, 8. Those all reduce to a 6. Same thing with the 3. The 4, 5, 1, and 2 reduce to a 3, and the 9s all reduce to a 9. So every 3, 6, and 9, surrounded by its 4 terrestrial numbers, reduce to the 3, 6, or 9. So basically what you can say is that these 4 numbers are an exploded view of this 9, or the 3, or the 6. Now what happens if you apply that same logic to the terrestrial numbers, it does something different. So if you, in this case, if you take the 8 and you add its 4 numbers surrounding it, it doesn't reveal an 8. Instead, what it reveals is a number either below or above it. In the case of this pillar here, if you add the 8 on the left side of the zipper, these 4 numbers reveal the number below it, and that continues. But if you do it on the right side of the zipper, the 4 spheres that surround the 4, 7, and 1 reveal the number above it. So these 4 numbers around this 4 reveal a 7, these 4 around the 7 reveal the 1, and on it goes. And that's still not all. There's a lot going on with this. Now on this zipper, what I call the zipper here, every connecting number of the terrestrial numbers also reduced to a 3, 6, or a 9, and it goes in order of 3, 6, 9. 3, 3, 6, 9. Depends how you look at it, but it goes in order. It doesn't miss a beat. So in this case, you see the 4. Well, if you add 4 and 5, that's 9. If you add 4 and 2, that's a 6. In the case with the 7, if you add 7 and 8, that's 6. 7 and 5 is 3. And 9, you got 8 and 1 is 9. And 2 and 1 is 3. So every single number, every single terrestrial number on the zipper reduces to a 3, 6, or a 9, to infinity. Remember, all this is to infinity. There is no borders on this anymore. This is infinite. Now, what else happens is, very interesting, the angular directions tell a story too. See, what it does, if you follow the line on this upward right angle, it reveals the numbers in their separated polarity. Example being is, it goes, I'll start here, it goes 4, 6, 8, but that would be 2, 4, 6, 8. You see the 2, 4, 6, well, continue here, 4, 6, 8. And then it turns into its next set. It goes 1, 3, 7, 9, and then 2, 4, 6, 8. You see the complete one here. You got 1, 3, 7, 9, and then that will turn into 2, 4, 6, 8. So it keeps going through. It goes 1, 3, 7, 9, 2, 4, 6, 8. 1, 3, 7, 9, 2, 4, 6, 8. And it keeps continuing. And that is, of course, a 5-4 presentation. And speaking of the 5-4, there's an interesting note with that too. When you look at the 9 and all of the numbers that encircle it, the only numbers that are not in the circle with the 9 are the 4 and the 5. Every other number is, except for that 4 and 5. But the 4 and 5 are just outside that circular ring. So you got the 9 and the surrounding numbers also reduced to 9 in its opposition. So we got the center 9 here. We've got 3 and 6 become 9, 2 and 7 become 9, and 1 and 8 become 9. The only numbers not in that are the 4 and the 5, but they are just outside it. 4 and 5, and then 4 and 5 outside that ring. Now if you go the other angular way, like this upper angle reveal the numbers in polarity form separated. Well, if you go upward at the other angle, it just goes in order of 1 through 9. It goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It just keeps continuing like that to infinity at an angle, which is amazing. Now, something else. There's still more to this. This is just perfect. This is just absolutely perfect. Now, you see all these little green arrows here? Well, what happens with every 3, like every 3 will, the numbers that are next to it, the terrestrial numbers next to this 3 will reduce to a 3. So in this direction, in downward. So we got 3, and then we have 5 and 7, which becomes 3. This other downward angle, you got the 3, and then you got 2 and 1, and that becomes 3. Now if you go the other way on that, it reduces to 9. So you take a 3, in this case you got the 3 here, then you got 4 and 5, and then you got 3 here, you got 1 and 8. So the upward left and the lower left produce 9s, and the upper right and the lower right all produced 3. So this is a directional vortex for the 3, and the 6s do the exact opposite. The 6s go the opposite way. You got the 6 here, you got a 6, in this upward angle you got 7 and 8, which becomes 6, and then you got a 6 here, and this other lower angle is the 4 and the 2, which becomes 6. But the other way it reveals 9. You got a 6, and you got an 8 and a 1 for 9, and you got a 6 and a 5 and a 4 for 9. So that again is showing the shearing direction of vortex math they're talking about. So this way the 6s are going that way, not that way, and the 3s are going this way. So the 6s go that way and the 3s go that way, which is congruent in vortex math. The 3s are forward motions and the 6s are reverse motions, and those guys explain that in the vortex math presentations. But there's still even more, there's still a lot more. but even if I do miss something, you should be able to see the perfection in this. This is infinite in every direction. This is universal. This is perfect. And as it demonstrates, this is flawless, and it's an infinite web. Now over here, let me get to this real quick, sort of to deviate from this. If I think of more stuff, and there is more, I'm just losing my train of thought. What this is, I actually got into this structure here when I presented what I call the spiraling serpent of Lord Osiron videos, and then the videos that followed that were the Vortex Math videos. The Vortex Math videos as a 2D cube. Well, this is what this is. And what this is basically this, but once you restructure it, it turns into this, and this is what's really going on. This is infinite as well, but it produces a self-contained circuit that follows the Vortex Math principle. So when you take so this is basically the 2D cubed version of Vortex Math, but we're going to see how that is important in a minute. Because if you take the Vortex Math principle where you keep taking the numbers in, so example, you got a 1 and 1 becomes 2, 2 and 2 becomes 4, 4 and 4 becomes 8, 8 and 8 becomes 16, which reduces to 7, 16 and 16 becomes 32, which is 5, 32 and 32 becomes 64, which is a 1. Well, this forms a closed repeating circuit, and it repeats to infinity, just like this is Vortex Math. And as I explained in that video presentation on this, it follows Vortex Math exactly, including crossing the 3-6 spheres at the exact same time as it does on the Vortex Math wheel. So what this is the Vortex Math wheel in a squared production, in a cube or a hexagonal view or squared view. This is the Vortex Math wheel, 100% exactly, without any deviation whatsoever. And it forms a circuit. This circuit goes to infinity. And then they stack to infinity as well. See, this structure is just this or this with a hexagonal shell around it. And the only reason that is there is to show you what the 9 is doing. The 9 is acting as a 0 space. These are like, you could equate these to pixels. These are just like pixels. They're self-contained circuits that never end, and they just extend to infinity in every direction. And what happens is, it offsets, see, it doesn't extend, like this 9, like the 9 wouldn't be right next to it. It offsets by one sphere every time. So what you see here, on this plane we have the 9. On this plane that runs through here, well, the next 9 is one below it, and it runs on this plane. The next 9 over here is one below it, and it's always offset by 1. If you watch my videos, I show in several videos how the number system offsets by 1 all the time. Well, it's doing the same thing in this web, and it just again extends to infinity. But this circuit this is a perfect structure, and again, all the oppositions reduce to 9. You got 1 and 8 is 9, 2 and 7 is 9. 4 and 5 is 9, and 3 and 6 is 9. And that works even if you do multiple structures. So we got 2 of them here. So we got 1 and 17, which is 1 and 8 is 9, and it's fractal. This is fractal to infinity. As a matter of fact, I watched a video recently, which is a pretty famous video about the Mandelbrot set. And one of the things they said in that was that the Mandelbrot set really couldn't be discovered until the age of computers. And that's not really true. Now, it might be true for that specific design that is a Mandelbrot set. For that elaborate design, it might be true. But what this is the natural Mandelbrot set with infinite fractality showing up in the single-digit code without computers. See, you don't need computers to produce the Mandelbrot set. This is infinite fractality using the single numbers of 0 through 9. Right, and if you recall from the video, just a couple I made, the clip-off video, I showed how all of the tens group of numbers, like 10 through 19, all of those numbers ultimately reduce to 1. Same thing with the 2s, 3s, 4s, 5s, 6s, 7s, and 8s. They all do that. So that's showing the infinite fractal nature of all this. So so it keeps. This is the Mandelbrot set using the single-digit code. Basically, this is infinite fractality the more you zoom in on it, it's the same exact structure. This is infinite fractality, and it extends to infinity. And they're little circuits, they're little pixels. It's like a pixel in the holographic universe. They all connect to each other, and they do the same exact thing, and it's all infinitely fractal. Now, there's a couple more points on this I really want to get to, but I know that there's something. Oh yeah, ah man, there is something I'm missing. I'm pretty sure, but we'll get to that. The pause of silence. But I got most of it. The main thing is you get the idea that this is an infinite web that extends to infinity. It never has to end, and it doesn't end. It just goes on and on and on. And this shows the perfection that transcends the tree of life. The true tree of life and the jewel just transcend that. And there's actually another structure too that I'll get into a little bit, just a little bit. Let me show you. I was avoiding. This is important because this goes hand in hand. This image here. You see this image? Now, there's a lot of people, even a good friend of mine included, who thinks this is the universal tree. But what this is actually a construct that was invented by a person named Osiron. And she has a lot of books, and she has seminars and stuff. And she presents this as, again, the perfect matrix in the universal tree. But there's a lot of flaws with this, too. And see, the middle structure is good, almost. See, there's 12 spheres on this, but what fucks it up is the two outer ones, the 1 and the 12. They fuck that up. There's also other mistakes in here too. A lot of them. It puts the 369 on the wrong pillar, the 258 in the middle pillar. It really fucks everything up. And the 147 is all inverted and fucked up. So this is far from perfect at all. Now, I'm not saying Osiron is a charlatan. I'm not saying that at all. But what I am saying, there are red flags in her presentation. And one of them is this. This is a huge red flag for anyone that claims to be accessing higher intelligence or higher entity intelligence through a channeling medium. Now, I know she doesn't say she channels. She says she receives signals via some electronic transfer, which is channeling. It's a fancy name for channeling. But there's one thing you got to watch out for with people who claim that, and that is when they start talking about supposed scientific truths as if they were universal and absolute. And one of the examples being are things like black holes, dark matter, dark energy, and all this shit. Once people who are claiming higher intelligence or accessing higher intelligent entities, and they start using terminology like black holes and dark matter, that's a huge, huge red flag. Because black holes and dark matter are nothing more than quackademic scientific conjecture with no basis in reality whatsoever. Those constructs are invented constructs by quackademia that try to justify their faulty worldview. It's the same thing as like what they're doing with that is trying to pound square pegs through round holes, and instead of changing and putting the proper peg in, their solution is to get a bigger hammer and hit it harder. And that is exactly what black holes and dark matter is. There's no evidence for any of that shit at all. At all. And that's one of the things that's pretty much squashed handily in the theory of the electric universe. Those guys, those are fallacies, and those things, and they're invented constructs. So when you have someone claiming to be channeling higher entities and they start talking about that shit as if it's absolute, that is a massive red flag, and you got to watch out for that. Now again, I'm not saying she's a charlatan. I'm just saying I have yet to see anybody explain that 12 structure with any kind of coherence whatsoever. You know what I mean? So, if someone can come along and explain it with, some kind of coherence and, without using fancy word jargon that can't be verified, then I'll entertain it as a serious construct. But I've looked at that construct many, many times. I was presented with that construct long before my friend even mentioned it last year, and I could never find anything with that supports the single digit code at all, because it's not. It's fucked up. It's skewed. It's perverse. The only thing that that does that might be close is that all of the oppositions reduced to 4. That's it. That's the only thing, you know. But other than that, it's, you know, there's bogus lines in that, and it's just crazy. Now, what this is, now let me get back to this. There's an important feature with this. What this is sort of like a hexagonal presentation of the Vesica Pisces, okay, except it's using angular lines. So what, you know, because we see the root construct here is a hexagonal shape with a center, which is 7 spheres. And this is like them merging together. So even the fractality of 2 is showing up in all of this. We got the fractality of 2 becoming 1, and it's the same thing over and over. This is both phases of the single digit code, showing 2, but it reveals a 1. So we're seeing the fractality of 2 and 1 in this too. You got 2 centers here, which is 6 and a 3, which is just a separation of the 9. A lot of fractality going on. The oppositions are all dual, you know, but they work together as one. There's a lot going on with that. And there's something else that's with that. This is just sort of me playing around here. But if you view this as 2 separate 7-sphered structures merging together, and then you count the spheres, you could say that these 4 middle ones, there's actually 2 of them, which that 4 would become 8. And then when you add the 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, that's 14 temperance, and that reduces to a 5. So again, we're seeing the 5 relationship with all of these structures. You could say that all of these reduce to a 5. So, yeah, that's just me playing around, but it does fit the theme of the pent-hex relationship that we hear so much about, and the heart of the tree and jewel being a 5 and a 6. So, alright, I guess that's going to be it. There's a lot of rambling now going on at the end, but this is the infinite web that never ends. So this is universal and it's flawless, and it may even be the solution to the Vortex Math grid, because it's perfect. You know, again, their Vortex Math grid, I never really liked that, but that, and again, but I'm not saying they're wrong, I'm just saying I just never liked it. And this is a lot more substantial and congruent, and it shows a lot of two-way streaming action, even one-way action. But thank you, and namaste.